Hi, welcome back to Tech Hub. I'm Rob Taub here at WOR Radio 710 AM on your dial. My guest today is Andy Kessler, who is, from reading his biography, a Renaissance man. He has had a career designing chips at Bell Lab. He has worked on Wall Street. He is on CNBC. He is a best-selling author. And prior to this, we were in the green room. We were talking about Mayor Bloomberg calling New York City Silicon Alley in terms of competing with Palo Alto and Silicon Valley, and I was going to get Andy's thoughts on that.
Well, I've watched other cities try to duplicate what happens in Silicon Valley. I've been out in Silicon Valley for 20 years and understand the model, and Singapore's tried to do it, the Research Triangle's tried to do it, all sorts of places around the world have tried to duplicate Silicon Valley. What I think New York can do is, instead of trying to design chips and routers and Wi-Fi components, is instead take that technology that comes out of Silicon Valley and apply it to the transformation of all the great industries that are in New York today. And it's happened generation after generation. I grew up in the New York area, and I remember going into the Empire State Building to go, someone let us in to go look out over the city, and it was the Van Heusen or Arrow Shirt Company, and people were actually sitting there sewing shirts. I mean, there were shirts that were manufactured, and if you go back further, it was a big manufacturing town, and it transformed. It got out of that. It became a service industry, and not just for the financial world and Wall Street, but media and advertising, and there is so much technology in terms of what's going on out in the clouds and mobile computing that those New York industries can use to transform themselves yet again. So I don't envision, the next great Wi-Fi company coming out of New York, but I do envision all sorts of interesting transformative companies coming out of the tech scene in New York. It's the application of technology rather than the creation of little bits and blops and the like.
Well, we've been using the expression on the show, intellectual capital. Do you see, is that what you're referring to, rather than more financial capital?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think they go hand in hand. I mean, the history of Silicon Valley is that Wall Street showed up and said, hey, we can come and we can do IPOs and we can be the source of capital for your wild dreams. And Intel was one of the first, new wave tech companies that went public in the 70s. In fact, road shows, IPO companies have to go on the road and go visit institutional investors, was invented for the Intel IPO, because before that, Morgan Stanley or Goldman Sachs would just call up and go, hey, we got 1 million shares of Kraft we need to move this afternoon. It'll be 10 and a quarter, and it got done. But with Intel, they go, we got these dynamic random access memories. What the hell is that? So they put them on the road. And so since then, all the companies that are related to technology go out on the road, and Wall Street has played an integral part of providing the capital for growth. I mean, that's what the stock market does. It's the allocator of capital. And I think New York City will benefit from that. Again, look at all the technology that goes into these high-frequency trading systems that's completely changing how Wall Street firms trade stocks and bonds and derivatives. Same thing with the advertising business. The traditional advertising buy on the prime time. It's completely changing when you've got to post ads on a mobile device. Well, how do you do that? Well, it's some really fascinating technology that gets used, but the overriding advertising business, I think, is going to be driven out of New York going forward. If you look at Yahoo and all the problems they're having, because they don't know how to sell ads. But New York, by definition, knows how to sell ads.
What are you doing now? How would you break down what you do? Are you what would you call yourself? Are you an investor, an entrepreneur, a combination of both, a commentator as well?
Yeah, I spent a whole bunch of years out of Palo Alto running an investment fund. A partner and I ran a fund that did both public investing and private investing. So we did later stage private companies that hopefully would go public, and most of them did. And we would invest in small cap public companies that hopefully would grow by 10 times or more. And we had a great run in the 90s and the early 2000s. Since then, I've been a writer, but I've also still an angel investor, and I invest with these groups of brilliant entrepreneurs who go, you know what, I got another one. I go, I'm in. I'm happy to invest, and then I help them both strategy on how to grow, but also in interfacing with Wall Street when it's time to pick bankers or do mergers and acquisitions. I'm a resource for companies to help them do that. What I'm fascinated by is New York, and this whole Cornell tech campus coming to New York, I think, is going to bring a lot of really smart engineering talent to New York. And, it's here and there, but this is going to be an epicenter. It's going to be a giant magnet for smart people who then Wall Street can hire or partner with, and the media business can partner with, and all the other industries in New York who need to completely transform how they do business, move online, move their stuff out into the cloud. There's going to be this wonderful resource of smart people and smart ideas and research that then, again, I think in the next 20 years, New York is going to transform again and look completely different how it looks today.
Well, Roosevelt Island has a much better view than Manhattan does, so maybe Trump will be building some hideous monstrosity there. Thanks very much for appearing on the show, and it was very insightful, and you're a smart guy. Thanks.
My pleasure.